Taking it back to when you were in the WWF and Terry Garvin, Mel Phillips, you wouldn't have been Mel Phillips type, absolutely not. You're over age.
Yeah, I was
And
way too old.
yes, and Pat Patterson, at least with Terry and Pat. But were there any rumors of the three spreading in the locker room to watch out for those in that sense? Or, that they would ever, aside from, the stories with Jimmy or Paul Roma or Nick Kiniski and stuff like that, was there any sense that if you make them unhappy in any way, your job could be on the line in that sense?
Yeah, it had happened to me one time in 1990 when I first went up there. Dominic had told me he was very, very close with Andre. And he said, first thing you do when you get dressed is you get out and introduce yourself to Andre. So I did. And after I came out of the room, walking down the hall in, I believe it was West Hartford, Connecticut, as I recall, it was dark. And I was walking towards the grill position, and I didn't even hear anybody coming up behind me, but I felt somebody reach up under and pull my pubic hairs under my tights. And I spun around to smack somebody, and Pat was standing there with a grin on his face. And my brain's like short circuiting. Like, I want to punch him in the face, but he's the boss, right? And you're the kid that this is your first day at work. And I nervously blurted out something like, I'm not into that kind of shit, Pat. And I can honestly say, and I never had any other issues like that, thank God. But it was fairly common in the dressing room to hear these types of stories. But it was never, as I recall, never said like, hey, let me tell you what happened to me last night. Hey, did you hear what happened to, I heard something happened last night with somebody that they, this happened or that happened. It was like that kind of like scuttled by like whispers in the dressing room. But there was always this pall hanging over that dressing room, that, if one of these guys does this, and there's been so many stories over the years as to things that, were told to me firsthand by people who claim to see it. Bruno Sammartino put it best. He said one time, so I asked him, I said, there's all these rumors about Vince and what. He goes, well, he said, I can't say I ever saw with my eyes. He said, but just on the average, if you were just hiring the most qualified people, what are the chances that you would have that many like homosexuals or transgenders or heterosexuals? Like how would it be that you have all at one time, in one place? And there was always this belief from everybody, Dominic, Bruno, Andre, pretty much everybody in the dressing room talking about these proclivities and these extracurricular activities that sort of went on. And it was sort of like the thing, especially that first run for me up there, like, don't worry about that shit. Just don't even pay attention to that shit. And, it was, but it was always festering there. Like you just knew there was a sense of wrong to it all. And, it's hard to explain to somebody that's never been in that inner holy of holies, the locker room. That's the place where the guys can pretty much let their hair down and drop the facade of whatever character they're portraying. And you see an awful lot of stuff in there that, as a kid that grew up in a small town that I did, it was, quite shocking and a bit of an eye opener, like, holy smokes, there's some freaks in this world, but you're also aware that the one thing in wrestling, at least in my time coming up, is you were made very well aware of where you were in the pecking order, that you mattered or didn't matter. And, in those early years for all of us, you're all pretty much treated like you don't matter. We don't need you. And it's true. They can get rid of you tonight and bring another kid in, same thing. So, you sort of sit there and go, put blinders on. And that's sort of become a habit of mine in life. I just sort of walk around with blinders on, so that I don't make eye contact with somebody and have an hour stop and talking about wrestling or whatever. And I think those behaviors were learned not just in the WWF locker room, but I think all the wrestling locker rooms I was in. But it was more ubiquitous in the WWE locker room, WWF locker room then. It was sort of like the unspoken worst kept secret that you knew this stuff was going on.